As the elevator's door opened up, revealing Jungkook from inside it, his eyes fell on her. She was roaming around in his penthouse freely as she owned it. The sharp sunlight coming from the big glass window, which was at the opposite corner of the elevator, fell on her. The bright light of the sunlight making her shine in it, revealing the epitome of perfection that she already was, at least to him. Her eyes fell on him. She saw him staring at her inside the elevator doors. Her blue eyes shone in the bright light of the sun, making him fall another time in her eyes. He leaned back against the wall and crossed his hands to have a better look of her from up to down. The eye lock for a moment, that intense one, that made her hands go down on their own, which held the novel. Why would she be reading a novel when a fictional, yet completely unreal and surreal man was standing right before her? It looked like he came just out of a novel, his big muscles ripping out from the sleeves of his white shirt, but they were covered with the black leather coat. Thank God, she said to herself. The one moment I locked instantly broke down when the elevator doors dinged, making them blink and come to the reality. He came out of the doors before they could close right on her face. The smile appeared on her face when she saw him coming towards her, the sunlight making his dark black eyes bathing in shines, revealing warmth and love for herself, and especially hunger for relieving the tiredness from her body. She took steps towards him, and he inserted his hand on the back of her neck while brushing his fingers from her hairs. His hand cupped her neck and the thumb going towards her jawline. He brushed her jaw from his thumb a couple of times while his eyes locked on hers. She felt a tingle in the back of her spine as she hesitated to keep the lock for a long time, as it was getting more and more intense. His thumb moved towards her lips, shaping patterns on her lower lip, the wet saliva of hers touching his thumb, making him feel the thirst to his core. Jungkook, how was your day? His deep voice, hungry for lust, said to her, boring holes in her eyes. Wine. Just a normal day, without your presence. Boring. Thank God you bought me these books at least, she said, unable to maintain the dialogue with him. Jungkook. Mine was very tiring. His deep voice growled. He continued, I'm hungry, really hungry. Can I literally get it over with by eating your skin without asking for your permission? His dark eyes locked with blue ones. Blush creeped on her whole body as she looked up to his eyes again and said, with all the courage she had left, you're asking for permission in that too. Since when did you need it? Her lips shaking while she said it. But she needed to, as he once told him that he likes her bold. He smirked widely. So, what did you do the whole day? He asked, his voice a healing balm. Wine. Missed you. Made food for you. read books in your remembrance, and prepared clothes for you, and prepared bedroom for us. Jungkook, why does everything you did includes me and only me? He came closer to her, his other hand going to her waist, sending tingles in her back, the space between them barely inches, his chest colliding with her breasts. Jungkook, don't you have a life of your own, Miss Jeon? He said, his scent and breath as he spoke could be sensed by Vine, considering how close they were. Vine, after hearing his voice, him calling her Miss Joan, sent goosebumps to her, as it was such a pleasure hearing that. Vine, my life is all yours, together with my name, Joan Jungkook, she said in a seducing voice. Her tone carried the weight that came upon him. He looked at her from up to down, finally breaking the eye contact to have the look of the exquisite view in front of him. Then his eyes came back on hers, and he said, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. The words echoed in her ears, and he didn't even let her blink that he crashed his lips upon hers. One surprise after another. How was she supposed to take all of this together? She blinked and realized she was taken. Her lips were taken by his, her waist was taken by his hand, her neck also taken. She was completely trapped in his embrace. Before she knew it, her breath got uneven, and she had difficulty breathing. She didn't think much and started kissing him back. She felt him. She felt it while he tasted her lips, licked them, and slowly bit them. His touch and grace was professional, but she wasn't too amused, as she already is used to it. She wrapped her hands around his neck, and he pulled her closer, leaving no space in between them. He got deeper and deeper with time, wilder and wilder with time. He didn't spare a glance at her before holding her tightly to take her to the couch. He made her lie down there, and slowly, as the dusk hit, they looked outside, to the beautiful and exquisite view outside, to the unbelievable scenery that made their heart flutter, to the future that seemed exciting just like the clouds, running wild beside the sun. They looked at the view together, and then spared each other a glance. He held her hand, and she held it back tightly. Together, they planned for their future, without speaking, just looking at each other and that mind blowing view outside. Their heart felt at peace, their nerves calmed, their bodies relaxed. As she sat up and rested her head on his shoulder. This makes me remember my mom. She loved sunsets, she said in a quiet voice. Jungkook, knowing that she told him once before too, but she must have forgotten it, looked at her and said in the same voice, same tone as her, I love sunsets too. She smiled and looked at him, raising her head from his shoulder. That I know it too, she said in a cheering voice as she flicked his nose, while he made patterns on her cheek. making her feel the tingles again. Jungkook, I don't care what awaits us. I will forever be by your side. We will somehow always find this beautiful view to look at. After a long tiring day, to calm our nerves down. He looked at her, eyes locked with hers, while saying that in a smooth voice. Wine, I promise. And now I'm hungry. Really, really hungry. I couldn't even eat much the whole day because of your absence. Now you will feed me, right? She said, trying to lift up the mood and not go into deeper talks. He laughed. Looking at him, she laughed too. And he said, Okay, my little cat, let's go eat. He said and made her stand on the floor of her own. Then they walked towards the dining table. She smiled, her eyes full of playful gleam, as she took a few quick steps, leaving him a little behind. As she said, Let's see who goes there first, she said, and started running towards the table. Jungkook, while calling her name, ran before her. Jungkook, this is cheating. Wait, he said while running. She turned behind and laughed on him. He laughed too, and they ran. The dining table was upstairs. That's why it took them a time to reach there, as they adored each other's faces while they laughed. He finally reached her, and he didn't cross her. Instead, he picked her from her legs and took her in his arms, went to the chair and made her sit on it. Her breaths were heavy as she was laughing and said, I sat before you, so I won, right? Jungkook, okay, you did. Time for food now. You are really hungry, and I can't see that anymore, he said while moving towards the chair beside her, and took a seat on it after dragging it close to Vine's. She took breaths as he made bites for her, realizing that it's all cold now. Obviously, he looked at her and kept blinking. This is all cold, as it should be by now. We will have to warm it up first. Vine, I'm going to die from hunger until then, she said as she put her hands on her belly. He stood up quickly and handed her a dish, while holding one himself too. She whined, but he said, Get up quickly, come on. He led the way and went inside the kitchen immediately. The evening turned into night as they warmed up the food together, ate together while laughing and talking. In the realm of the mafia, where danger lurked in every shadow, Wine was his sanctuary. Her presence was a smoothing melody in his ruthless world, a melody that resonated with the promise of solace and understanding. As they slept into a deep sleep in each other's embrace,